We just saw how the defining moment of the nation of Israel at Sinai as a kingdom of priests is just a further clarification of the Abrahamic covenant, blessed to be a blessing to all the families of the earth, which itself is just a further clarification of how God, after the fall, is going to fulfill the creation mandate for the whole world to be filled with his image bearing worshipers. I want to iterate now a little more on this idea of kingdom as it develops in redemptive history of the Old Testament and bring us to 2 Samuel 7, the Davidic covenant. We've seen the Abrahamic covenant, now the Lord's covenant with David, when David wanted to build a house for God, wanted to build a permanent temple for God rather than the mobile tabernacle that had been carried from one camp to another, encampment to another through the wilderness from the days of Moses up until the days of David. And Nathan the prophet heard from God and said, "Well, David, it's God hasn't commissioned you to build this temple. It will be built later on by your son, but it's God actually has a plan to build a house for you, a metaphorical house, a kingdom." I'm not going to read this whole text. It's 2 Samuel 7. I do want to highlight just one thing in verse 9. I've been with you from the pasture wherever you went. I will make for you a great name. I will make for you a great name like the name of all the great ones of the earth. That one is really seems to echo this idea of making for you a great name. That's echoing the Abrahamic covenant that David, as the seed of Abraham, is carrying on the Abrahamic. So this is just an extension of the Abrahamic covenant that I will make for you a great name. That was what God promised to Abraham as well. But then God almost also said that you'll be blessed to be a blessing to all the nations of the earth. And the way that happened was through Israel being a kingdom of priests. Well, now we get to David, and God promises that his son will build a temple for the name of God, and God says, "I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever." So the new addition that we have now to the idea of kingdom is a forever kingdom. This word forever. And it's not just once, actually. This word forever appears at least 3 times. "I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. Your house and your kingdom shall be made sure forever before me. Your throne shall be established forever." So it's not a once off fluke. Not that God ever misspeaks even a single word, but by repeating it 3 times, it's abundantly clear that the word, sorry about that, didn't mean the word forever is important here. We're introducing, the Davidic covenant is introducing to us the idea of a forever kingdom. Now, it's not really laid out exactly how that's going to work. It's even a mystery. The Old Testament is full of mysteries. How are you going to work this out, this forever kingdom? There are some people are still dying. How can you have a forever kingdom in a world full of death? Now, there are some hints. David himself in the Psalms indicates that he has a hope of resurrection life. Famous verse in Psalm 16:10, "You will not abandon my soul to Sheol, to the grave, or let your Holy One see corruption. You have made known to me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand there are pleasures." Again, there's forevermore. Should stop clicking that. David is expecting to enjoy pleasures at God's right hand forevermore because his soul will not be abandoned to the grave. Now, I know in the New Testament, if you're a Bible reader, you know that this is applied to Jesus, and rightfully so, as the son of David. But it's David who wrote this, and he's writing it in the first person. So David himself has the hope that my soul will not be abandoned to the grave. So David apparently has some hope in a resurrection life and a world to come where such a thing as a forever kingdom makes sense. So it's not all the details aren't fleshed out in exactly at this point and how this forever kingdom is going to work, but God has introduced into his covenant dealings with his people that there is going to that they're going to be a kingdom of priests and that there is this idea of a forever kingdom And what I want to point out is that this is just, it seems as the story goes along, even though we're getting further away in the text and further away chronologically from Genesis 1, in some sense, we're actually moving back and getting closer, because now we have a new ingredient that's actually bringing us back closer to the creation mandate of a forever kingdom. Because in Genesis 1, before the fall, there wasn't, mankind was not destined to die. He didn't have to die. Death was a consequence of his sin. When you eat of the free, if you eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you will surely die. You will die the death. And so, hypothetically, theoretically, that didn't have to happen. In that, if mankind had not disobeyed God's original command, they would have lived forever. And so, this filling the earth, the creation mandate to fill the earth with God's image bearers, to expand the boundaries of Eden into a worldwide utopia of God, man, and creation living in loving harmony together forever. The word forever may not appear there in Genesis 1, but implicit in the idea that mankind didn't have to die if he didn't eat the fruit is that this was a forever glorious world. And so God's subsequent covenants, now in 2 Samuel 7, the Davidic covenant, is reintroducing this forever concept into the equation, of a kingdom of God and man living, because that's the content of the covenant is that I will build a house for you, your son will build a house for me, I will be your God and you'll be my people. God and man living together, in loving harmony, just like in the Garden of Eden. But now somehow that's going to happen forever.